What's up, gang, and welcome back to Fragile Bridges, where it's about keeping the dark reaches of the Mediaverse connected, from the past to the present, and the mainstream to the obscure. I'm your porter with the goods, Marcus, and today's delivery is a reversal from the norm. Usually novelizations are a footnote when discussing movies and video games, but today we change that, because I've stumbled upon a literary package so obscure, over the top, and non-canon to its source material, I felt compelled to give it the Fragile Bridges treatment. It's not made by Hideo Kojima, but it is based on one of his games. From the Worlds of Power book series, it's Metal Gear. Obviously, the first question to answer is, what are the Worlds of Power books? Well, they were a scholastic book series of early 90s video game novelizations for Nintendo games like Ninja Gaiden, Mega Man 2, Bionic Commando, and of course, Metal Gear. Over time, the books have become rather infamous for the creative liberties taken with their source materials, and these were most likely allowed because if you look inside any Worlds of Power books, it states that they're not endorsed, sponsored, or authorized by Nintendo. But if you were a kid who loved gaming in the early 90s, you were probably just stoked to read a book based on a game you liked. And Worlds of Power had an added cheeky selling point as they included game hints written upside down at the end of chapters, and some also had a tear-out trading card in the middle. The books were also very manageable for kids to digest as they were written in a simplistic, easy-to-read style. And yeah, simplistic is a nice way to put it. What isn't simple though is finding out who made these books. Take the Metal Gear book for example, as the first page says, created by FX9, written by Alexander Frost, and a Seth Godin production. Alright, let's take a deep breath and break that down. Now, each of the Worlds of Power books had a different author, but FX9 was the collective pseudonym used for these books, despite the author's real name still being used, which, okay. And Seth Godin, well, he was merely responsible for producing the series, and though he's a New York Times best-selling author, he didn't write any of the Worlds of Power books. And I'd like to tell you about the author of Metal Gear, Alexander Frost, but I can't find anything on this dude. There's a number of other books written by a Alexander Frost, but I don't know if it's the same person. In fact, there's quite a few Alexander Frosts out there, I just don't know which one wrote this book. And before we completely dive into one of the strangest reading experiences I've ever had, let's briefly rehash what the original Metal Gear game plot was. Metal Gear revolves around an independent military nation called Outer Heaven that has almost completed a new type of nuclear weapon known as Metal Gear, which would surpass all other weapons and bring the world to its knees. After a failed operation against Outer Heaven, new Special Forces Foxhound recruit Solid Snake is sent in by his commander Big Boss to rescue captured comrade Gray Fox, a scientist named Dr. Petovich, along with Petovich's daughter Ellen, who have also been taken hostage, and to destroy the mysterious nuclear weapon Metal Gear. You traipse through the military compound, do the sneaky sneak, save the hostages, and blow up the big bad murder mech, but as you attempt to escape the base, your commander Big Boss reveals he was behind Outer Heaven, hoping to create a powerful military nation to surpass all others, and that he had sent Snake in thinking the rookie recruit would fail the mission. So Big Boss goes all self-destruct, and he and Snake duke it out, with Snake coming out on top, and the game ends with Big Boss's ominous words. A very straightforward and tame story compared to how crazy and convoluted Metal Gear Solid became. And while the book sort of follows the bare bones of this plot, its strange creative liberties and at times bizarre prose are what make it an entertaining odyssey of bad literature. But let's delay no further, because it's time for Metal Gear, the novel. Warning: what follows is a recreation of what my mind imagined while reading this book. Tread with caution. Where to even begin with this book? Well, how about the cover? And this is a practice across all the Worlds of Power books. Because they're kids' books, any sort of weapons were airbrushed out, but someone clearly didn't think this one through as Snake looks ready to give his snake a tug or do a shake weight workout. Simply put, this image just has not aged well. The book starts off almost exactly like the game, except your Marine Captain Justin Haley, Solid Snake, the absolute best of the elite Snake Man unit, and you're being sent to infiltrate Outer Heaven by Commander South and General West, because apparently Major North and Colonel East were too busy to show up for this operation. But the whole Snake Men thing threw me for a loop because Frost uses the phrase so much throughout, and every time I hear Snake Men, this is what goes through my mind. Also, the author has a strange habit of constantly switching between calling the main character Solid Snake, Justin Haley, or just Haley. It's like he can't make up his mind and feels like you're reading about a schizophrenic spy who's having an identity crisis during the mission. In fact, here's a great example. So west Haley went, keeping low and quiet as possible. As he moved without sound through the jungle, Justin Haley found himself in a patch of jungle growth that had a strong, sickening odor. Solid Snake recognized that smell. Panther musk. And this goes on throughout the entire book. At one point the author just goes for broke, calling him a Solid Snake Man, which was a moment so face-palmingly hilarious I had to put the book down and compose myself. But let's talk about that whole Panther musk incident.
Yep, it's made with bits of real panther, so you know it's good.
Because as Snake approaches the entrance to Outer Heaven, he notices a strong musk that he identifies as panther pheromones on some of the plant leaves, which he then rubs on his sneaking suit. And when a pack of Doberman guard dogs descend on him, Snake gets on all fours and pretends to be a panther to scare them away, using the panther musk as a warning to the dogs. This is super goofy, but also kind of plausible, and I could actually see it in a game like Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater, where we did have stuff as silly as the croc cap, so, you know. But I digress. Snake then comes across a pack of cigarettes in an enemy truck, and we all know how much Snake loves to smoke. But since it's a kid's book, Snake's a little bitch and won't even take a puff of a cigarette, saying they're dangerous. And while I'm not advocating glorifying smoking to kids, this is for sure not my Solid Snake.
You know a lot about science, but you don't know how good a cigarette tastes in the morning.
Who knows, maybe the smoking thing started after all the shit he dealt with in this Metal Gear 1 mission. He manages to rescue one of his fellow Snake Men, Chuck Robinson, and we're treated to this exchange. The heat panels. You can't get to Metal Gear without crossing the heat panels. They're terrible. Terrible. Burning. They burn. Eat the rations. You've got to have plenty of rations if you want to make it through the heat panels.
Let me know if you see a Radio Shack.
Anyways, a couple chapters later, I was 50 pages in, and suddenly a question came to mind. Has Snake killed anyone? No, actually. Despite him having already acquired a Beretta, a submachine gun, grenades, along with a grenade launcher and mines, all he's done is rabbit punch a few guards, which is a stark contrast to Raymond Benson's Metal Gear Solid 1 novel, which was certainly not for kids, as Snake was a kill-crazy bastard who was gleefully spouting one-liners to guards before snapping their necks. In Frost's book, even when Snake has a gun, he's reluctant to use it and pistol whips everyone instead. I know that the non-lethal route was taken because this is a children's book, but the adherence to infiltrating stealthily and avoiding enemy incursions seem more in line with Kojima's idea for the game, and his non-lethal philosophy, which has been a staple of the franchise since the tranquilizer gun in Metal Gear Solid 2. But this is where the compliments, even if they are backhanded, end. Because from this point, Justin, gets captured and conveniently is placed in the same cell as fellow Snake Man Commander Gray Fox. But weaponless and the clock counting down, Snake punches a hole in the wall for him and Fox to escape. Yes, Snake punches a hole through a wall to get out of jail. That's some straight up Ricky O shit right there. Fox is exhausted, so Snake tells him to stay put while he finishes the mission. Snake, rescues a few of his other captured Snake Men, and finally reaches the dreaded heat panels. Now, apparently the heat from these panels is hot enough to burn flesh, but Snake is able to get by just by eating rations, which increases body temperature enough to withstand the panels. Alright. Well, I'm no scientist, and I also have no quippy way of finishing the sentence, but that heat panel ration shit just doesn't make sense. Anyways, after traversing a moving bridge in an underwater tunnel which are of no consequence, Captain Haley, reaches a giant room containing a man-made desert. And in here, he encounters train killer scorpions. Now, I know this book was made in 1990 before any of the Solid games, but when I read Train Killer Scorpions, I was thinking, oh, like some killer scorpion robots or mech things. No. These are 17-foot tall, mutated scorpions. It's, in my opinion, the pinnacle out of left field what the fuck moment, where you're like, oh wait, what, this is happening. It's also the only part of the book where Snake uses his weapons. He just grenade launchers these scorpions to Kingdom Come. But I was cracking up at this description of the scorpions coming after Snake. They had caught sight of Solid Snake. He could tell because of the horrible high-pitched buzzing that came out of the three of them. The sound of evil excitement. Which, I'm not sure what that means. Were they twiddling their fingers like Mr. Burns while they approached him?
Excellent.
Now, I've never actually played Metal Gear 1, but I did watch a playthrough before doing this video, and yes, there is a part in the game where Snake encounters some scorpions, but not like giant mutated scorpions. They just look like slightly bigger scorpions, which is just as stupid, but they're not like 18 feet tall. I mean, there's scorpions, and then there's... scorpions! Anyways, Solid Snake... Yeah, you thought I was gonna do it there, but I didn't. I'm not that vicious. So Justin Haley rescues the scientist's daughter and makes it to Metal Gear, which is not even really described as a walking mech, just a nuclear launching device that's mobile, run by remote. Oh shit, in all this excitement, I think I forgot to mention the main villain's name, which also had me cracking up, because it's none other than the most evil of terrorists, Colonel Vermin Katafi.
Of course!
Yeah, he's your typical evil asshole terrorist guy who wants to blow up the world because... Well, that part's never really made clear. He's just evil because he's evil. Duh. But he's forcing the scientist to rig up Metal Gear to do some evil nuclear bombing, but Snake, along with the other Snake Men he helped free, bum rush the hangar as the nuclear launch countdown starts. They pummel everyone unconscious with their fists, and Snake manages to hit the abort button at 1 second left. He quickly beats the crap out of Katafi, and then Commander South and reinforcements show up like the end of Commando. But Katafi has slipped away, with Snake vowing their paths will cross again someday. The end. Well, this book was definitely bizarre to say the least. To be fair though, it did follow most of the plot points of Metal Gear. However, it also felt like a generic military spy story about a dude named Justin Haley, and all the Metal Gear stuff was just tacked on afterwards because there's virtually no details on any of the Metal Gear things. Nothing about Outer Heaven, Big Boss is never mentioned, probably due to the licensing, but then again he was able to use character names like Snake and Gray Fox, so who knows. The whole affair is just strange, but oddly entertaining. Unlike Raymond Benson's later novelization of the Solid series, which added depth and detail to the characters and events of the games, Worlds of Power is a very cookie-cutter adventure that, even for a kid's book, it's pretty bad. So for quality, I give Metal Gear Worlds of Power a 5 out of 10, but as far as entertainment goes, I give it a 10 out of 10. It's pretty terrible, but for a Metal Gear Solid fan, it can certainly make for a so garbage it's gold afternoon of reading. It's not a book you'll find at your local Barnes & Noble, but if you're itching to get a copy and enjoy Justin's Bizarre Adventure, Metal Gear Worlds of Power is available for purchase on Amazon.com. Well gang, that was certainly an out-of-the-ordinary delivery, and one that I felt took us on the road less traveled, but it was also one of the most fun journeys I've had in quite some time. I know I say that a lot, but as someone who really loves So Bad They're Good movies, it was different and a little refreshing to read a So Bad It's Good book. And before we wrap up today, I'm really curious to know if you've experienced this fantastically bad book or anything in that so garbage it's gold category. If you like this book breakdown, you should check out my video on Metal Gear Solid 1 where I discussed that game's novelization as well. It's pretty good.
You're pretty good.
You're pretty good. Pretty good.
But thank you again, fellow porters. Your time, support, and feedback is always appreciated here at Fragile Bridges. And remember to hit the like and subscribe button if you've enjoyed these videos. But I've got to get back to keep on keeping on with keeping us connected. As always, I'm your porter with the goods, Marcus, and I'll see you on the other side of the bridge.